The other half of the time, I would dismiss myself as a sicko or believe I was broken, diseased, low-quality human being, inherently flawed and sick in the worst possible way. So how could I explain this to someone who didn't understand mental illness? How could I tell them what I was doing when I was alone? Maybe if I shared my story, they'd finally realize how stupid and sick I was. Or I am. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Alaska and I live with OCD. I haven't slept to be able to record the video. First, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel. Some of you I've even had the chance to thank personally through messages. Anyway, OCD is full of shame, and because it is such a difficult topic to talk about, I want to share my experience. Don't think you are the only one who has these horrible intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts and shame. Shame has been a big part of my experience. Since I had my first intrusive thought as a child, I became obsessed with it, but the idea of opening up and saying, "Oh, you know what? This weird thing happened to me the other day," felt impossible. I couldn't tell anyone, or my mom, for example, that I had uncontrollable thoughts mixing sexual and religious themes.
Hi there, it's Autumn.
This channel is new and creating this content takes courage and bravery.
It means a lot to us if you subscribe to the alternative OCD room.
Wishing you all the best and bless you.
Beyond that, I didn't feel that there was any reason to talk about it. I thought, that's bizarre, I must be the only one who is thinking this kind of stuff. Because I'm sick or stupid. At best, sick and stupid. Like, seriously, you get it? I didn't really analyze it. I just believed that I was sick and that I should do everything that I could to forget it. And that was the end of it. The strange part is, 15 years later, and I still remember this intrusive image. At the time, I was deeply Christian and very young, so you can imagine how affected my mindset. It really poisoned my psychology. I can't remember all the details, although I think I'm not entirely sure, that I would just try to forget about it and just feel bad about myself for having such terrible thoughts. Later, as OCD began to form and religion became the main focus, I started to feel like God was listening to my thoughts. It wasn't that I actually felt Him listening, I just feared that He might hear them and misunderstand my character. I was terrified. I thought He would think that I am the one with these thoughts and desires. It left me anxious with stress and afraid of angering Him. Compulsions and shame. Moreover, 16 years old, I would experience intrusive thoughts more intensely, and now intrusive thoughts and nightmares would be something that occurs in a weekly basis, almost daily basis. As 16 years old, I would experience intrusive thoughts more frequently. Typically, I would distract myself with weed, alcohol or something. By the time I was 19, I was using cocaine and pills as well. Cocaine and Xanax only amplified it, but that's how Xanax works. It gives you one good night of sleep and takes you 100. I didn't just avoid triggers, I performed rituals every day and night. For example, when it reached 11:59 p.m., I had to turn on in a positive thought, word, song or feeling to set the tone for the next day as soon as it turned 12 a.m. And it wasn't about rituals at midnight to protect my day. My thoughts have already started to contaminate everything. I've been dealing with this since I was 16, but now could even contaminate the moment. Whatever I was doing at the time got tainted, so I had to rewind the movie that I was watching or the song that I was listening to. Sometimes I'd even had to change clothes. I started to Google different animals and numbers to see what they mean spiritually, and of course I'd look up positive or lucky numbers or images to try to change the vibe. So you can imagine how hard it was to tell my friends or my mother that 19 years old or 20 years old, I had to take 20,000 photos of me because the first 19,999 felt contaminated, or that I had religious sexual thoughts, or that I was repeating phrases to protect my day, and so on. Just all the nonsensical things I was doing. And I kept doing this for years, until not too long ago. I was doing even more rituals, so to speak. At my worst moments, I had a ritual for nearly everything. Even how I poured water or how I opened the door. Oh, and plus, fun fact, in general, my mother believed that people with OCD all have such clean rooms and stuff like that, so she got this idea from the internet. Self-criticism of not achieving impossible standards. Furthermore, half the time I felt like I had to beg my own mind, OCD, to let me enter to universities, colleges, restaurants, not to take things away from me, I don't know, whatever, without feeling like they became contaminated by my thoughts, or by the presence of people that I don't like if I happened to see them there. Who was I begging? My mind. That's who. My own mind. For instance, if I would plan to visit a new city, I would spend almost the entire day before the trip feeling anxious, sad or upset, feeling that OCD would contaminate the trip and ruin it for me forever. Even if I really liked the city, I would struggle to be there. The other half of the time, I would dismiss myself as a sicko or believe I was broken, diseased, low-quality human being, inherently flawed and sick in the worst possible way. So how could I explain this to someone who didn't understand mental illness? How could I tell them what I was doing when I was alone? Maybe if I shared my story, they'd finally realize how stupid and sick I was. Or I am. I would relentlessly criticize, blame and shame myself because I couldn't achieve the impossible, maintaining pure thoughts during sacred moments. And so I would punish myself. Isolation and secrecy. As you can imagine, I couldn't tell anyone that simple movements of my body could fill me with overwhelming guilt, or that when I looked in the mirror, I saw the worst person imaginable staring back at me. I couldn't explain that a voice in my head would say something and suddenly I would be drowned in sadness and fear, terrified that God might be angry with me. Deep down I knew it wasn't logical, but I had to be sure, just in case. Because if he was angry, nothing else mattered. And on top of all of that I felt stupid, deeply, hopelessly dumb. Because I knew probably the other people didn't do the things that I was doing, but I twisted it around in my mind. Of course they don't do these things, they aren't as negatively charged as I am, they don't need to, they would never ever experience or have such atrocious or disgusting thoughts. Of course it was a mistake. I should have told my mother what I was truly struggling with. Maybe then I wouldn't have spent all these years believing that I was a pervert, doomed to burn in hell. I might have realized that I just have OCD, just like other people have diabetes. And that would have been okay. I still hate OCD. I don't want it. It is a horrible thing to have, but I'm okay with it now. I don't feel as terrible as I used to. That's why I really wish I had asked my mother for help sooner. Just find therapists who actually know what they are doing, please. I know because I've been untreated for too long. Moral scrupulosity and shame. OCD and shame go hand in hand with nearly every subtype of OCD, or maybe even all of them, but for sure with scrupulosity. To be honest, I wouldn't care so much about what other people think, but there were two things I did deeply care about. First, what God thinks of me, not other people. That was devastating, especially when I was drowning in so many intrusive thoughts. Second, I wanted to be a good, moral and ethical person in general. I can't stand thieves, abusers, racists, homophobes, sexists, whatever. Nothing like that. I see people like that as unethical, so it was incredibly important not to think or judge others in such a way. And I didn't. My OCD did though. OCD is autonomous, uncontrollable force, almost like a living thing on its own, two completely separate things. It is just a tumor in my mind, like a leech that attaches itself. Keep in mind, I could feel awful or like I sinned if I just fucked up a mantra in front of a mirror, or if I couldn't keep my thoughts pure while praying. So I would end up punishing myself for things like that. The very existence of these thoughts made me believe that I was a bad person. I remember trying to explain my experience to my mother, but I couldn't be clear. I would only mention nightmares because I thought normal people can have nightmares, nowhere near as bizarre as my intrusive thoughts, which depends. So I would describe intrusive thoughts, but a softened version, or I'd leave out the shameful details to show her what I was going through without the shameful details, but what I was going through, but it didn't work. At that time, I was also constantly terrified that I would end up in hell when I would die. My distrust of the Greek medical system and my shame kept me from telling mental health professionals what was really happening. I went without a treatment for far too long, but I don't think that it is easy to find a professional either, especially in Greece. I don't remember exactly what I expected her reaction to be when I told her about my OCD. I guess I was afraid of many disastrous scenarios, which to be fair can happen. I mean, some people are just like extremely stupid. So be careful, but sometimes a partner can handle the situation much better than what you anticipated. I think Autumn would make an excellent therapist too. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. Even if you can't talk to the people around you about this, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, or just keep watching as I talk about all the crazy, shameful things I used to do. Thank you again. Positive vibes only. Positive energy to you, to your loved ones. Bless you.